Hello, beautiful souls. Your listening practice today is my experience of the worst rains and floods I've ever seen in my life, and the worst that Vietnam has seen since 1964. The wettest days in an already very wet country. Vocabulary today includes floods, landslides, super typhoon, emergency supplies, and more. I knew the floods were bad when I looked out the window of the bus, and it was water as far as I could see. I looked out the left window, and again, water as far as I could see, with just a few tree tops coming out the top of the water. It was like looking out into a big brown ocean, but we were nowhere near the sea. The only thing not underwater was the road I was on and the bus I was in. Suddenly, the sound of the rain on the roof felt very loud indeed. Why was I in a bus driving to Laos during the worst ever rains? Why was I on the bus on small mountain roads? Because I needed a new visa on that day. So I needed to get to the international border at Laos. I live in Vietnam, for those that do not know, and Laos is the country next to Vietnam. Could I have taken another bus on another day at another time? No! My visa was expired on that day. Without it, the police could send me out of the country. So I sit on this bus with water on both sides. The driver's face looks serious. He looks straight at the road, deeply concentrating, not talking. Nobody was talking. We had to take a different road to normal because the road we normally take was closed. Why was the road closed? Because after 3 weeks of non-stop rain, 3 weeks of rain and wind, day after day after day, there had been landslides. Of course, when there is lots of water in the earth, especially in hilly, mountainous areas, what happens? Landslides. A landslide is hundreds of tons of mud and earth moving down the hillside like an avalanche. Landslide. New vocabulary. And there had been a landslide on the usual road we take to Laos, so we had to take a different route. Before, it was all fun and games, but that day was the moment I was really like, oh my God, like these rains are like becoming a bit dark, emotionally a bit dark, psychologically challenging. Check this out. Only a few days before, that area of Vietnam where I was on the bus broke the world record. Broke the world record of the most rain in one day of anywhere on land since records began ever. 1,739 millimeters of rain, which is 1.7 meters of rain in 24 hours. Well, it was the second most amount of rain ever on planet Earth. First place was in 1966 in the Indian Ocean. Anyway, nearby towns and villages were underwater. Where I live in Da Nang, a few hours away, it was okay so far. But our story will focus on a town just south of there, where 3 of my closest friends live. They live about 25 minutes drive south of me, with their young families, in a cute, small town called Hoi An. Hoi An is famous for being on a river, and rice paddies are everywhere. A rice paddy is a field where they grow rice. But rice paddies are also the kinds of places right near streams and rivers that easily flood. And Hoi An, this town, is central to our story. The water level was rising fast. So I'm on the bus and we had to get to Laos before the border closed. A few hours later, we arrived in Laos. I got a new visa. I was okay. I was safe on paper. But back in Hoi An and across central Vietnam, the real story was just beginning. Because the rain doesn't give a... Who has a visa? The last few weeks were the rainiest days of my life. Rainiest days in an already very rainy country. I'm Tristan, an English teacher for over 12 years. On this podcast, I share real-life stories and my experiences in simple English, so you can pick up English naturally. So, Vietnam, my home, is rainy for half the year. And for the other half of the year, it's dry. It barely rains at all. We have no normal seasons here, no spring, no winter, no summer. Instead, we have just dry or rain. The dry season or the rainy season. In the town of Hoi An, just south of my house, the river and streams started to overflow. Water started filling the streets where my 3 close friends live. At first, it wasn't too bad. Nothing people hadn't seen before. Residents or people in the shops put their valuable things on shelves or upstairs. They wore flip-flops. But the rains continued and continued. After 2 weeks, it wasn't stopping, and people started worrying. Everyone was told, myself included, to buy lots of food supplies, kind of like COVID, with the supermarkets full of people. Then we heard a typhoon was coming. At a point, it had already been raining for 2 weeks. A typhoon, vocabulary, is another word for a hurricane. Basically, the worst storm that exists on Earth is a typhoon. The typhoon had completely destroyed towns in the Philippines, and it was now on its way to us. And it was getting stronger. And by the time it got to us, it was going to be a Category 4 super typhoon. The winds were getting faster, and they were scheduled to be 210 kilometers per hour. Do you know what that is? 210. That is trees sideways, blowing furiously, the treetops being ripped off and flying down the street, as well as parts of people's houses, pieces of metal flying in the street. I can't imagine how you can even breathe with air moving that fast. With the typhoon on its way, the authorities here, authorities meaning the police and government, the authorities had to make a decision. See, there is a big dam in the Hoi An area. A dam is a huge wall, a huge concrete and metal wall that holds a lake full of water. A dam. Sometimes a dam needs to be opened, like a tap, like a giant tap, so it doesn't overflow and flood. So the authorities told everyone they have to open the dam, otherwise it will overflow. Or worse, it could break. This was a lose-lose situation. So they had to open the dam to keep it safe, which means all that extra water would flood Hoi An even more. And the water level in Hoi An was already 1.5 meters high. Already, lots of people had left their houses. Everyone was told to expect 0.5 meter more of water. Around this time, in the town my 3 close friends live, which is 25 minutes drive south of me, I was seeing people in boats, people on roofs. We shared videos in our group chat. One of them, Rocky, he was walking through brown water in his house, and he shows a video from his roof. The chairs and table in his garden are completely underwater. So he lives next to a rice paddy and a stream. Another friend, Chris, his wife was 9 months pregnant and could give birth at any minute. So how would the ambulance reach her when all the roads are covered in brown water? Imagine trying to get in a boat in the dark, while the baby is coming. The idea is unimaginable. So everyone in Hoi An was getting ready for the full flood, for the opening of the dam. And the typhoon was still coming closer to us. So people moved furniture upstairs. They parked motorbikes on higher streets. Around this time, Rocky abandoned his house. He had to call a boat to be rescued, to be saved, with his wife and young son. His bottom floor was flooded. My other friend, up to his knees, flooded. My other friend, Matt, was the one his house, he's the one guy in his house did not flood. So they all stay there together in one dry place. Luckily, the typhoon started going south, and the center of it did not come to our area. But the waves were giant, huge waves. And, there's lots of digital nomads, Australians and crazy people here. A few crazy surfers were out there, absolutely loving it. Best waves of the season. So the typhoon went across a region south of our region, And in the end, it was 185 kilometers per hour winds. So, chairs, metal signs, bicycles flying through the street, huge objects flying down the street, and a few people even still trying to drive around. Crazy. And I know people in this country work hard. The Vietnamese are hard workers. But I mean, come on. Is there really anywhere you absolutely need to drive to when there's a full-blown typhoon outside? Now, Hoi An, the central town to our story, could finally start recovering. People started to relax a little. They cleaned the streets. They smiled again. But the sun was not shining. The clouds were still dark. And clearly, the universe had other plans. Week 3, and the rains still didn't end. I've heard of a kind of depression that some people get in this kind of weather. You know, some people get sad and depressed when it's rainy or cloudy, and they become happy when the sun comes out. It even has a clinical name. It's called seasonal affective disorder. SAD. SAD. It's a kind of depression. Actually, a close friend of mine, Nikki, who has been on this podcast before, he has it. And I always thought, come on, you pussy. You can't be sad because of a bit of rain. But around this time, things definitely got a bit weird. The howling wind. The non-stop rain. Soft rain or hard rain. Drizzling rain. Rain that went sideways. Rain that came from every direction. But usually hard rain. Hitting my window with varying levels of aggression. Around then, I felt like I was going a bit insane. Things got a bit trippy. I'm not sure if it was lack of vitamin D or what, but I started having all kinds of thoughts and dark thoughts, which are kind of rare for me, to be honest. I'm generally quite a happy, positive guy, but things were getting a bit scary. My roads were okay. I live in an area about 25 minutes drive north of Hoi An. I live near the sea, on the ocean front. So I thought to myself, here can't flood, right? If there's lots of water here by the beach, it'll just go into the ocean, right? That's common sense. The ocean level can't rise. The sea can't flood. Because it goes out into the whole world. So if the ocean floods, then surely the whole world floods too. And that can't happen. And that is when the wave came. A wall of water. I had never seen a tsunami before that day. Only joking, everyone. Of course, there was no tsunami. Otherwise, it would have been world news. And I think these floods were already world news, but yeah, sorry. Bad joke. So my area, my exact street had no flooding. Just lots of big puddles. But going back to Hoi An, so Hoi An is also the tourist capital of Vietnam. Tourism is everything in Hoi An. And luckily, the town started functioning again, and people were going back to their homes, cleaning their shops, helping out their neighbors, until at this time, the next typhoon was forming, as usual, over the Philippines, and once again on its way to Vietnam. At first, we hear about one person who dies in the floods, and then we hear about 3 people who died. A few days later, the number is higher again. About 10 people had died in the Hoi An area, and another 10 were missing, and many more across the rest of Vietnam. And I remember the good friend of mine, Chris. His wife was heavily pregnant, so she had a baby inside her, and she was due to give birth any moment. What would happen if she went into labor? Labor is when the water breaks and the baby starts coming out. What would happen if she went into labor? How would the ambulance come? Luckily, he made a great decision. They left their house and came to my bigger town and rented an Airbnb next to the big and best hospital to wait for the mother to go into labor, which was an excellent decision, and they've since given birth. A beautiful, healthy, bouncy baby boy. So that's good. So the next typhoon was to arrive, and once again, the authorities had to open the dam. And once again, more water filled Hoi An. But again, by the grace of God, this typhoon lost its power on its way to us. By the time it got to us, it was just lots of wind. It had turned from a typhoon into a what we call a tropical depression, which is just bad, stormy conditions. Again, perfect conditions for surfing. And once again, the crazier surfers were out enjoying the waves. After 3 weeks of madness, the sun finally came out. 3 days of sun after 3 weeks of solid rain. And that was the worst part of the rainy season so far. Before moving to central Vietnam, I was warned. People said to me, "Are you sure you want to move to central Vietnam? The rainy season is famously crazy." And I thought, it can't be that bad. Seems I was wrong. But to be fair, I prefer rain than snow and ice where I used to live in Canada. During the dry season, I did notice some clues about the rain here. For example, I went to stay with an ethnic community in the mountains outside of Da Nang a few weeks ago, and the rain there was bad. It's like it's in a valley, so between 2 big green mountains, and it rains very often there. So I was driving my bike around this gorgeous, beautiful valley. And every so often, the rain was so strong, I'd hide in a cafe or under someone's roof, stopping the bike. But I noticed the local kids were playing football as if it wasn't raining. and I saw them riding bicycles slowly in the super heavy rains. They were completely unaffected by the rain. They played around equally when it was raining super hard and not raining at all. They completely didn't care if they were wet, like they didn't care at all, like they didn't even think about it. Rain, not rain, all the same to them. No raincoats. They weren't hiding under trees, hiding under roofs like I was. Just continued playing football, even though the rain was so heavy I could barely see what was in front of me. Up to now, about 90 people across this beautiful country had died or missing due to the floods. So, what lessons can we learn? I'm sorry, but I have to say something important here. Everywhere I've lived in East Asia, and I'm sure it's similar in many parts of the world. So I've lived in Korea, in Japan, and here in Vietnam. Too many people just don't know how to swim. Like less than 50% of people are able to swim. I saw a video here in Da Nang. There was a kid in the river. A kid, like a boy, was in the river, drifting quickly in the river's current. And there was an adult, like a screaming female, watching him. And did they jump in and save him? No. Instead, the adult ran around, screaming, "Help! Help!" Screaming for someone to help him, because they could not help him. It would have been so easy to save that boy. Learning to swim is not just to save your own life. You are also prepared and ready to save someone else's life. A child's life. It's even the easiest thing to save. And sometimes so easily to save it, right? If you can swim. It's completely irresponsible as a human being to not be able to swim. There's a word for you. Irresponsible is the opposite of responsible. It's irresponsible to not be able to swim. Luckily, she did find a man that was able to go in and save the boy. It was an easy rescue, actually, for someone who can swim. To parents out there, across the world, for the love of God, stop putting your kids in after-school classes, in maths, science, English. They study until 10 p.m. every night, like here in Asia. Don't do this until they know how to swim. Knowing how to swim is the first priority. Oh, great! Your kid can figure out how big a triangle is. Oh, great! You can pass the school test. Well, all of that is useless if the kid drowns. It's crazy, the priorities of people. Everyone needs to know how to swim. And I know of the 100 people here who died from the floods, so many of them would be alive now if they could swim. I'm sorry, it's a fact. It is a fact. So deal with it, basically. In Korea, nobody could swim. In Japan, a few more people could swim, but not enough. It's probably the same in China, probably the same in Taiwan, I would guess. Actually, it should be illegal for a kid to not know how to swim. And if I was the dictator of the world, if I was the ruler of the whole world. If your kid can't swim, the adult in charge of that kid or the parent goes to prison, jail, for neglecting the child's safety. Honestly, like, it's that important. And you realize it when you've experienced the last few weeks as I have. You might think it's a stupid law, but how many other stupid laws do we have, right? Across the world. In Singapore, you can't sell chewing gum. Yeah? But your kid can't swim. Great. In Switzerland, you were not allowed to flush a toilet after 10 p.m. In Japan, until 2015, you weren't allowed to dance after midnight by law. Yeah? Lesson 2, or rather observation 2. Climate change. The Earth is getting warmer. It is very real. It's not some distant, abstract idea. Oh, maybe in 50 years it'll be a problem. It is a problem now. I can see it with my own eyes. Here's an interesting one for you. I saw that people in the Philippines are trying to sue, which means to take to court and sue to get money from someone. Yeah? They're trying to sue oil companies, especially Shell. The oil company Shell, a British company. Apparently, Shell are one of the top contributors to climate change, and 67 survivors of a recent super typhoon in the Philippines are trying to sue them because Shell have known about climate change since the 1960s. They knew their products would change the world's temperature, but they hid and kept secret these facts. They didn't warn people. Instead, they paid, like other major oil companies, they paid people to keep quiet and to make evidence disappear. Let's heat up the whole world forever so a few people can be rich. And maybe you heard this, that electric cars were invented decades ago, but these major oil companies bought the idea, bought the patent, which is the copyright of the idea. They purchased the idea and then made the idea disappear. Have you heard of that? So everyone would continue buying their oil. So climate change is not some foreign, distant, abstract idea anymore. Seeing the rainy seasons get worse and worse, seeing typhoon after typhoon, it seems very real indeed. Okay, guys, lots of love. Have an amazing, fun-filled day, and well done for improving your English today, learning new vocabulary and learning about the wider world and hearing about my experience recently and life story. You are a star, and have a beautiful week.